Pontiac, Michigan, 1965. Inside St. Andrew's Catholic Church's small sanctuary, 6-year-old Madonna Louise Ciccone stood frozen with terror as she prepared to sing her first solo during Christmas Mass. The youngest girl chosen for a solo performance was so paralyzed by stage fright that she nearly couldn't step forward from the choir, her eyes fixed on her shoes as the congregation watched with a mixture of patience and concern for the obviously frightened first grader. What happened next would become the foundation of music history. When Madonna finally opened her mouth to sing Silent Night, the voice that emerged from her tiny body stunned everyone present, clear, perfectly pitched, and carrying an emotional intensity that seemed impossible from a child so young. The congregation's collective intake of breath was followed by a profound silence as they processed the disconnect between what they were seeing and what they were hearing. Most remarkable was Madonna's own transformation during those few minutes in front of the altar. As she registered the congregation's reaction, something shifted in her demeanor. The first glimmer of the performer, who would one day revolutionize entertainment, emerged from behind the veil of crippling shyness. But this wasn't just about a pretty voice. Something else was happening. Madonna Louise Ciccone was not the obvious choice for a solo. She was shy, skinny, and still grieving her mother's death just 2 years earlier. The other girls in the children's choir were older, more confident, had been taking voice lessons. But Sister Mary David, the choir director, had heard something during practice, something she couldn't quite explain. Madonna Louise, she had said, after rehearsal one Thursday afternoon, "I want you to sing a solo at Christmas Mass." "Me, sister?" Madonna's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, you. Silent Night. First verse. Just you." "But I can't. I mean, the other girls are better. The other girls have training. You have something else." Madonna didn't understand what Sister Mary David meant, but she agreed, mostly because saying no to a nun wasn't really an option in a Catholic household. For 2 weeks, Madonna practiced obsessively in her bedroom, in the bathroom, walking to school. Her stepmother Joan would hear her singing softly to herself while doing homework. The same verse, over and over. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. But something was wrong. Every time Madonna imagined standing in front of the congregation, all those eyes, all those people, her throat would close up. She would forget how to breathe. 3 days before Christmas, she went to Sister Mary David. "Sister, I can't do it. I'm too scared." Sister Mary David looked at her with those kind but firm eyes that nuns perfect over decades of teaching. "Madonna Louise, do you know why I chose you?" "No, sister, because when you sing, you're not performing, you're praying. The other girls are thinking about their voices, their pitch, their technique. When you sing, you forget about yourself completely. That's a gift. Don't waste it because you're afraid." Madonna nodded, but she wasn't convinced. St. Andrew's Catholic Church was packed for Christmas Eve Mass. Families filled every pew, the scent of incense mixing with pine from the Christmas tree by the altar. Candles flickered. The organ played softly. Madonna stood in the choir loft with the other children, wearing her best dress, navy blue with a white collar, too big because it was a hand-me-down from her older sister. Her heart was beating so fast she thought everyone could hear it. The Mass proceeded normally until Father Morrison announced, "And now our youngest choir member, Madonna Louise Ciccone, will sing the first verse of Silent Night." Madonna's legs wouldn't move. Sister Mary David, standing beside the choir, gently touched her shoulder. "Remember, you're not performing, you're praying." Somehow, those words unlocked Madonna's frozen muscles. She stepped forward to the microphone stand that had been adjusted down for her height. 300 people looked up at her expectantly. Madonna looked down at her shoes. This was it. This was the moment she would either sing or run crying from the church and never come back. Madonna closed her eyes. Not because Sister Mary David had told her to, but because she couldn't bear to see all those faces. And with her eyes closed, something changed. The church wasn't full of judging strangers. It was just her and the song. Her and her mother, who she imagined could hear her from heaven. Silent night. The first two words came out trembling, uncertain. Then something happened. Holy night. Her voice found its center, found its truth. All is calm, all is bright. The congregation, prepared for a sweet but simple children's choir performance, began to realize something unexpected was occurring. This wasn't just a little girl singing a Christmas carol. This was something else entirely. Madonna's voice was clear and pure, but with an emotional undertone that made the familiar lyrics sound profound. She wasn't just singing about a silent night. She was singing about loss and hope, and the ache of missing someone who was gone. She was singing about her mother. Round yon virgin, mother and child, several women in the congregation began to cry quietly. Not because the performance was technically perfect. It wasn't. Madonna was 6 years old with no formal training, but because there was something heartbreakingly genuine in her voice. Holy infant, so tender and mild. Father Morrison, who had heard 1,000 Christmas masses in his 40 years as a priest, found himself holding his breath. Sleep in heavenly peace. Madonna opened her eyes on the last line, finally brave enough to look at the congregation. Sleep in heavenly peace. The note hung in the air for a moment, then faded into the Christmas-decorated silence. Nobody moved. Nobody coughed. Nobody whispered. 300 people sat in a Catholic church on Christmas Eve, stunned by what had just emerged from a 6-year-old girl who moments earlier had been too scared to step forward. Then the applause started, gentle, respectful, emotional, not the enthusiastic clapping you'd give a child who'd done well, but the kind of applause reserved for moments when something sacred has occurred. Madonna stood at that microphone, blinking in the candlelight, and for the first time since her mother died, she felt something other than grief and fear. She felt powerful, not in a boastful way, not in a way she could even articulate, but in a deep cellular way that would shape everything that came after. Sister Mary David was crying. Father Morrison was nodding slowly, as if confirming something he'd suspected. Madonna's father Tony, sitting in the 5th pew, had his hand over his mouth, eyes wide with something between shock and pride. But most importantly, Madonna felt the connection, that invisible thread between performer and audience, that exchange of energy that would become her addiction, her purpose, her reason for being. Years later, Madonna would describe this moment. I was 6 years old, standing in front of my church, so terrified I almost couldn't sing. But then something happened. This energy came from the congregation and went through me and back to them. I felt my mother in that moment. I felt seen. I felt like I mattered. And I knew even at 6 that this feeling, this connection was what I would spend my whole life chasing. After Mass, families filed past Madonna, who stood awkwardly by the Christmas tree, unsure what to do with the attention. That was beautiful, dear. Your mother would be so proud. What a gift you have. But the comment that mattered most came from an unexpected source. Mrs. Doris Grant, the church's organist for 30 years, pulled Madonna's father aside. Mr. Ciccone, your daughter has something extraordinary. That wasn't just a child singing a carol. That was an artist channeling emotion. She needs training, real training. Tony Ciccone looked at his 6-year-old daughter, who was now chattering excitedly with her siblings, the shy, frozen girl from minutes ago, completely transformed. We can't afford. I'll teach her myself. Free. I'll teach her piano, voice, theory. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never heard what I heard tonight from a trained adult, let alone a child. That offer changed everything. For the next 4 years, until the Ciccone family moved to Rochester Hills, Madonna studied with Mrs. Grant every Tuesday and Thursday after school. Piano, voice, music theory, performance techniques. But more than that, Mrs. Grant taught Madonna something invaluable, that the thing that made her different, that ability to channel raw emotion through performance, was her superpower. Technical perfection is nice, Mrs. Grant would say, but connection is everything. You already have the thing most performers spend their whole lives trying to find. Don't lose it trying to be perfect. Madonna never forgot that lesson. That Christmas Eve performance established a pattern that would define Madonna's entire career. Fear, courage, connection, transformation, every major moment in her life would follow this arc. Every time she pushed boundaries, reinvented herself, risked failure, she was essentially doing what she did at 6 years old, stepping up to that microphone, despite being terrified, opening her mouth, and trusting that the connection would happen. Like a virgin at the VMAs. Same pattern. Like a prayer video controversy. Same pattern. Every reinvention, every risk, every moment when critics said she was finished. Same pattern. She was always that 6-year-old girl stepping forward despite terror, trusting the invisible thread between performer and audience. In 2015, Madonna was performing at a charity concert in Detroit, not far from where she grew up. During the acoustic portion of the show, she sat at the piano and told this story about being 6 years old, about Christmas Eve 1965, about Sister Mary David and Mrs. Grant, and the moment she discovered her purpose. I was so scared, she told the audience of 10,000 people. But Sister Mary David said something I never forgot. You're not performing, you're praying. And that's what I've been doing my whole career. Every performance, every song, every controversy, I'm not performing for you. I'm praying with you. We can't afford. I'll teach her myself. Free. I'll teach her piano, voice, theory. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never heard what I heard tonight from a trained adult, let alone a child. That offer changed everything. For the next 4 years, until the Ciccone family moved to Rochester Hills, Madonna studied with Mrs. Grant every Tuesday and Thursday after school. Piano, voice, music theory, performance techniques. But more than that, Mrs. Grant taught Madonna something invaluable, that the thing that made her different, that ability to channel raw emotion through performance, was her superpower. Technical perfection is nice, Mrs. Grant would say, but connection is everything. You already have the thing most performers spend their whole lives trying to find. Don't lose it trying to be perfect. Madonna never forgot that lesson. That Christmas Eve performance established a pattern that would define Madonna's entire career. Fear, courage, connection, transformation, every major moment in her life would follow this arc. Every time she pushed boundaries, reinvented herself, risked failure, she was essentially doing what she did at 6 years old, stepping up to that microphone, despite being terrified, opening her mouth, and trusting that the connection would happen. like a virgin at the VMAs. Same pattern, like a prayer video controversy. Same pattern. Every reinvention, every risk, every moment when critics said she was finished. Same pattern. She was always that 6-year-old girl stepping forward despite terror, trusting the invisible thread between performer and audience. In 2015, Madonna was performing at a charity concert in Detroit, not far from where she grew up. During the acoustic portion of the show, she sat at the piano and told this story about being 6 years old, about Christmas Eve 1965, about Sister Mary David and Mrs. Grant, and the moment she discovered her purpose. "I was so scared," she told the audience of 10,000 people. "But Sister Mary David said something I never forgot. You're not performing, you're praying. And that's what I've been doing my whole career. Every performance, every song, every controversy, I'm not performing for you. I'm praying with you." Then she sang Silent Night, just like she had 50 years earlier. Her voice was different now, older, richer, layered with decades of experience and heartbreak and triumph. But the essential thing, that ability to channel raw emotion and create connection, was exactly the same. When she finished, the arena was silent for several beats, just like that church had been. Then someone in the audience, a woman in her 60s, stood up and started applauding. Then another, until all 10,000 people were standing, applauding not just for Madonna the superstar, but for that 6-year-old girl who was brave enough to open her mouth, despite being frozen with fear. Madonna's first singing performance reminds us that extraordinary talent often begins with ordinary courage. That 6-year-old girl wasn't special because she had a perfect voice. She was special because she was willing to step forward, despite being terrified, because she chose connection over comfort, because she trusted something inside her that she didn't fully understand. The Queen of Pop wasn't born on MTV or in the Billboard charts, or on stadium stages. She was born in a small Catholic church on Christmas Eve, when a grieving little girl discovered that opening her mouth could create magic, that vulnerability could become power, and that the connection between performer and audience was worth any amount of fear. Every legend starts somewhere. Madonna's started with a trembling 6-year-old frozen with stage fright, who somehow found the courage to sing one verse of A Christmas Carol. That's all it took. One moment of courage, one decision to step forward, one willingness to be seen despite the terror. Everything else, the fame, the controversies, the reinventions, the decades of dominating pop culture, grew from that single moment when a scared little girl learned what it felt like to connect. If this story moves you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from music history. These glimpses into the vulnerable beginnings of artistic legends remind us that even the most extraordinary journeys begin with simple human moments of courage. What was your first time performing in public like? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever overcome severe stage fright to discover unexpected talent? What childhood experiences shaped your confidence or creative expression?